for our society, it's important for us as individuals, and I think it's important for us to be good citizens, to understand, again, where we came from and how we got here and who we are as a country.
History is who we are and what we are. What you choose to save is what you choose to tell about yourself. We ordinarily think of the present as an infinitesimal point where the future changes into the past. We don't realize that the past is caused by the present. History is made and preserved by particular people. A camera in some hands can preserve an alternative history. Never throughout history has a man who lived a life of ease left a name worth remembering. Preserve your memories, keep them well. What you forget, you can never retell.
But anyway, and then there was a hog shed built into that hill, and then between these two ridges here, there was a cow milking parlor.
Sometimes I think we, in our modern world, where we're always clean and we always have access to, 1,000 different conveniences, I think it's instructive. I think it's important that we recognize what a struggle and how much our ancestors sacrificed to make our own lives possible.
A lot of people did not make it. A lot of people left. And so the fact that their families managed to stay, maintain those properties, and in some cases succeed past what others were doing, it's absolutely a source of pride for them.
We take water for granted, but one of the things that the folks who, even on the land runs, had to find was water. The West, in many cases, especially the Great Plains, lack of water prevented settlement. It wasn't until windmills were in general use that farmers could actually make a go of farming on the Great Plains.
But it was just a natural place for an orchard, with protected from the wind, with the hills on 3 sides of it, or actually 4 sides of it, counting this across the road. They all went back to Guthrie and got a divorce. They weren't exactly living together, but they weren't separated so much that the kids quit coming.
The succession planning is always a tough topic. Who's going to take over, or if there are family members who are, weekend farmers.
A lot of those families who own that farm, they're getting up in age. They can't properly take care of the farm anymore. They don't have any family members that want to take care of the farm. So they're selling off to people, in some cases, people who have said, oh, absolutely, we want to farm it, who then turned around and sold it to become a subdivision. And some are choosing to sell to subdivisions or developers to build subdivisions, because what else are they going to do with it? They don't have anyone to pass it on to. So a lot of those original farmlands, especially our Oklahoma County properties, if you look now, if you Google drive it, it's a subdivision.
How ironic it is that if a human being, if a person loses their memory, all of a sudden you have no memory whatsoever, that would be considered a great tragedy, and everyone would feel sorry for you, and everyone would do everything they could to help you regain your memory, and you personally, if you lost your memory, you would feel lost, you wouldn't know where you came from, wouldn't remember who you were, who you knew. But ironically, as a nation, if we forget our history, or if it becomes less important than, say, math or the sciences, people just don't consider it a big deal, whereas I believe it is. I don't know how we could go forward as a nation. I don't know how we could be good citizens without an understanding of where we've come from, why we are who we are, and what we are. And I consider it an essential discipline for all students to learn. Our library is working on 24 hours a day trying to figure out ways to preserve digitally, history in a digital format. So however we preserve it, it's important.
My name is Shay Otley. I am the coordinator for the Oklahoma Centennial Farm and Ranch Program.
My name is Juliana Nicolasian, and I work here at the OSU Library.
I'm Tanya Fincham. I also work here at the OSU Library.
I'm Kurt Anderson, and I work here at Oklahoma State University at the Edmund Lowe Library. And my primary assignment is doing research from some of our special collections.
The program is specifically to honor all families who have maintained the properties for 100 years or more. Although it was originally created to highlight that 1889 run for that specific 100 years, it was very quickly spread out to anybody who had maintained, because they realized not only were there the 1889 run families at that time, you also had the American Indian allotments that were here and others who had settled before, especially those who were on the cattle trails and things like that. So the program is for way more than just the runs.
The goal of this project is kind of twofold. First, we want to conduct oral history interviews with the family members, but we also want to document what's left on the land. And so we go around the farm and we take photographs. And it's really a great time to connect with the farmers. And since they're such strong stewards of the land, you could see the pride they have in showing us around, from even old barns that are no longer in use to brand new equipment that they may be using, or you may see some of the changes on the land through the years.
All of us need to preserve that. I'm fascinated by my own family's story, homesteading in Michigan, coming from Sweden.
These people have passion. They have passion for every little detail about their family, and if you can get them talking, many of them will start to remember what they've forgotten from when they were a child.
The wilderness they lived, is the wilderness that we dream of, because it's gone,
I think we're fortunate in Oklahoma because it's a young state. But it's still important to have those memories and record history that you may not be able to find in books or on Wikipedia.
Actually, history is a lot of fun. It's an adventure. It's a story. The word story is in the word history.
Sometimes just getting them talking will keep them talking for an extended period of time. And I kid you not, I've had many a conversation that has lasted an hour and a half or more. Just them reliving these stories that life made them forget.
When I got back to South Dakota, I set off to be a horseshoer, and I had some contracts at some guest ranches out there, and I would be shoeing horses, and people would actually be filming me, because I'd had, parents would be saying to their kids, see, they were amazed because they didn't realize that people still shoed horses. I mean, that's how disconnected in some ways we are from our past,
I tell most of them, when they do start telling their stories, I make sure to tell them to tell the stories. Don't just write them down, because the one thing that people will miss when somebody is gone is their voice. The sound of somebody's voice is so incredibly important in eliciting that emotion and that feeling that you get when you hear the voice. So by taking some questions and then just recording it into a tape recorder, it is an amazing gift that they can give to their family, that words on a paper, although great, are not the greatest.
Oftentimes, especially with this particular project, we'll sit down with family members and they'll say, I wish you were here 2 years ago when my father was alive or when my grandfather was alive, because they could tell you so much more. And so with this project, we're doing our part to help document the agricultural history in the state.
There was a probably one generation where we really didn't see a whole lot of applicants, but even not a whole lot of applicants was 35 a year.
There are some positive things too. I mean, the nation as a whole is more aware of preserving the wildlife that's left.
Now we're seeing this huge influx of applicants, and we're hitting more like 60 a year or 65 a year. And what we're finding is that a lot of people, until they actually fill out the application and start the process, they didn't realize until they started it how important the stories that the families had to tell were to them. They didn't realize how exciting it would be to learn those stories. And then for some who are maybe a little bit older, getting those stories down so that they know that the next generations will have those.
History has relevance for what's going on today. That's why it's so important.
I think we're fortunate in Oklahoma because it's a young state.
It's just a fascinating experience. And in the state, Oklahoma City, as an example, was, one day it was prairie, and 48 hours later it was a tent city. Just very, very rapid development in Oklahoma compared with the rest of the country.
Well, what has occurred is, early on, Oklahoma City was not a very large place. It was, the center, but there was plenty of land around, and that's where a lot of our farms were located. So for the ones, especially here around Oklahoma City, the old Edmond families, they sold off their properties because subdivisions were coming in and encroaching on the property. And as they got older, it became less and less important to hold on to.
And so these were tough times for them. And so you learn a lot about the land, and you learn a lot about the people, and you learn a lot about yourself.
I just had a phone call yesterday from one of our recipients whose house was burned down. And in it went the certificate. All of the documentation was behind the certificate, and all of the history of who owned the property was behind the certificate. So she lost all of that, but because we had the application and she had put all of that information down, I was able to mail her a copy of that, so that now she has that. She has the stories she wrote. She has some photographs that she included. And it's not much when you've lost your entire house, but it's at least a little bit of something. Apply. If the property is eligible, absolutely apply. Both for the recognition of what your family has accomplished, but also to get your history down somewhere that's not with you.
Don't let your earlier experiences with history, prejudice you or discourage you from getting back, like we use the word, into the adventure of it.
I think you could drive down these country roads and you'll see a farm, and you don't realize what's beyond that gate. You don't realize the strong emotional ties to the land. You don't realize the labor involved. You do not realize some of the beauty, even here in Payne County.
History is who we are and what we are. What you choose to save is what you choose to tell about yourself. We ordinarily think of the present as an infinitesimal point where the future changes into the past. We don't realize that the past is caused by the present. History is made and preserved by particular people. A camera in some hands can preserve an alternative history. Preserve your memories, keep them well. What you forget, you can never retell. Never throughout history has a man who lived a life of ease left a name worth remembering. Preserve your memories, keep them well. What you forget, you can never retell.
I'm Kurt Anderson, and I work here at Oklahoma State University at the Edmund Lowe Library. And my primary assignment is doing research from some of our special collections.
My name is Shay Otley. I am the coordinator for the Oklahoma Centennial Farm and Ranch Program.
So my name is Juliana Nicolasian, and I work here at the OSU Library.
I'm Tanya Fincham. I also work here at the OSU Library.
There goes Bobcat.
See.
Did you see him?